What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and it's time for a live players grade after the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Oakland Raiders with an undefined scoreline. Some people are saying that the Derek Barnett, lateral play touchdown didn't count or not. So depending on the source, they either won 13-10 or 19-10. But let's be real. At the end of the day, we all know who the best Elliott in the division is. We all know what team has the first round bye in the NFC. It was ugly. That was maybe as bad of a game for the Eagles I've ever seen. I've seen some bad football, and now there's questions arise. Is Nick Foles the answer? Is Nick Foles a guy that can actually play quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles and give us Eagle fans hope? Oof. I don't know, man. We're going to jump into the grades. It's always the best way to start this out, and then I'll just kind of give my thoughts on the game. But trust me, there's going to be a couple Eagles-themed videos coming out next week because we're going to need to talk about it. But first things first, Nick Foles on the day, 19 of 38, 163 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The touchdown came on a screen pass to Jay. I mean, it was pretty standard. Interception was horrible. Just overthrow it, a wide-open Zach Ertz, tipped off of Ertz's hands and went right into Reggie Nelson. Horrible. Nick Foles was terrible today. Absolutely terrible. I mean, it did not help that the offensive line had a bad game. And I do believe a big part of why the offensive line struggled, obviously without Wisniewski in there, you're already a damaged offensive line, and when you're losing another guy that's been capable. But it's more so teams, they weren't respecting the pass. They're just like, all right, they're just going to run the ball. So on the first 2 downs, it just seemed like Doug Peterson kept going in the run, pass, play calling, and it was predictable. We ran a predictable offense, and when you have a predictable offense, even the best of offensive lines struggle. That's why when, good teams run a predictable offense, it's when they're trying to close out a game, not when they're trying to win a game. So, offensive line didn't play well. Wide receivers didn't play particularly well. They didn't get much separation. But ultimately, I do believe, Nick Foles' play definitely had a spiral effect to where, all the shortcomings on the rest of the offense were. So, Nick Foles is getting an F. That was a terrible game. I can't even remember. I made a tweet that I don't even think Mark Sanchez might not have even had, maybe he had a bad game, but this game right here that Nick Foles put forth is as bad of any game that Mark Sanchez might have done for the Philadelphia Eagles. So he's getting an F. Running back Jay had 4 carries, 51 yards, and a costly fumble. Corey Clement, 2 carries, 14 yards. LeGarrette Blount, 5 carries, 12 yards. Again, going back to my Twitter, my fire Twitter, PapaXC4 on Twitter. Corey Clement needs to get more carries, man. The more and more I see it, the more and more, they're not. I just don't think they're comfortable giving Jay more than 15. So if someone's gonna have to eat into LeGarrette Blount's carries, I think it's gonna be Corey Clement. Corey Clement. There's a reason why he was in the backfield for the final drive. He is the most explosive runner. Ajayi is probably the best combination in terms of explosiveness, agility, speed, and power. He's like the fine wine between Corey Clement and LeGarrette Blount. But Clement needs more touches, man. He's an absolute beast for us. And he's kind of like, he's the change of pace. He's the guy that when I look at the Philadelphia Eagles offense, maybe Nelson Agholor can have a big play, spring a big play. But Corey Clement debatably is the juice for the offense, I feel. Because, you kind of expect Jay to have a big run or so. But when Jay had a fumble, looking at this game, Corey Clement would have been the guy. I would have tried to get more involved because he is the most likely guy to get that, plus 15, plus 20-yard run out of nowhere on a draw or something like that to really, kind of start to keep the Raiders' defense honest. But the fumbles and stuff like that, man, running backs, they did their job. They did a job. I wouldn't say they did their job. I'd give the running backs a C on the day. Wide receivers, literally Zach Ertz and Chris Long are probably the only 2 players that can really hold their head high, I think, from this ball game. Zach Ertz, 9 catches, 81 yards, which helped me seal my fantasy football championship win. Only 2-time champion in my league's 10-year history. Nelson Agholor, 4 catches, 35 yards. Jay, as I said, caught the touchdown on the screen pass. Wide receivers work good, man. It's really, really tough for the wide receivers to play well when their quarterback is sucking, but they weren't helping them. There was a couple plays that were, fine, not great passes from Nick Foles, but with how these wide receivers were playing with Carson Wentz, you would expect them to make a catch like that. Help Nick Foles. You know what I'm saying? Nick Foles' ball placement was terrible. He was constantly under pressure. Some of that through his own fault, some of that because the offensive line was getting battered because the Raiders knew what was coming before because we're so damn predictable. But ultimately, I do feel like the wide receivers could have helped Nick Foles in better situations. But Zach Ertz had a great game. All in all, for the wide receivers, I'd say maybe a C+. That could be still a little bit generous. Maybe a C+, still in that range. No one's getting above a C+ on the offensive side of the ball. Offensive line was not very good. Lane Johnson had a couple. They called 2 holding penalties on Lane Johnson. The first one was pretty ticky-tacky. The second one was a clear holding. Anytime you're going up against Khalil Mack, it's a little bit of worry, but Khalil Mack didn't get a sack. I guess at the end of the day, Lane Johnson did his job. He protected our quarterback as best he can. Now that left-hand side of the offensive line with Warmack and Big V, terrible. And I am convinced. I am absolutely convinced. If you look back at the Jai fumble, it looks like the fist that's punching that out is Chance Warmack. It could have been the angle that I was watching. I think they awarded it to Reggie Nelson. But I watched that play. It looked like Jai was on the top of the pile, and Chance Warmack was coming in to kind of like ram him, to nudge him ahead a couple yards. And it looked like a black glove was the fist that was punching it, and looked exactly like Warmack. I don't know. I could be crazy, but that sucked. Jake Elliott, the only kicker I've ever seen that just is absolutely shaky, unreliable, below like 35 yards or 40 yards, but 45 plus. He's incredible. And shaky kick, but Jake Elliott, like I said, it's a meme that he's the best Elliott in the division, but hell, he's the only Elliott in the division that's going to the playoffs. He has won more games, debatably. This is not even a hot take. Debatably, Jake Elliott has been more to the Philadelphia Eagles this year, pretty much getting us 2 wins, than Zeke Elliott has for the Dallas Cowboys. You can say right now at the top of my head, I'm not, obviously this is a quick take, but Jake Elliott has firmly won the Philadelphia Eagles 2 games. I can say Zeke had that one game where he almost had over 200 yards of offense. Outside of that, was there any games that Zeke Elliott single-handedly won for the Dallas Cowboys this year? So, we're not going to go too far down this rabbit hole, but in terms of what Elliott has been more important to their team, it might be Jake Elliott. So, special teams, Donnie Jones was not very good. Again, I still think getting my boy Johnny Townsend from the University of Florida. Hashtag, spoiler alert, hashtag, there's going to be a bunch of mock draft stuff this week because it's Christmas and I don't have a lot of time to record Madden, so I'm just talking over Madden. I think we need to get a new punter and move on. But special teams, they did a job here. Kenyon Brenner did have a fumble. He recovered it. No harm, no foul. So I give special teams B-. And that's all because of the Jake Elliott kicking game. So looking at the defense, here's how we're going to end the video because it's really what comes down to the Philadelphia Eagles and our aspirations going forward. I made this tweet, a pretty good tweet, a pretty fire tweet, is that it's a double-edged sword, what I'm going to say. Any given Sunday, you've seen the Patriots play like the best team in football, lose to the Dolphins badly. You've seen Pittsburgh play phenomenal at home, and as soon as they go on the road, they're horrific. You've seen the Eagles today against the Raiders play bad. It's an any given Sunday league, which means that even with Nick Foles, we've seen what Nick Foles can do against the Giants. We've seen what this defense can do tonight. Any given Sunday, this Philadelphia Eagles team, with home field advantage throughout the playoffs, which we secured, they could beat any team in the NFL if everything goes correctly. But on the other side of that, we have the spin of any given Sunday, because any given Sunday, we don't know what unit's going to show up. We saw against the Giants, every question coming in was, can Nick Foles replace Carson Wentz? And what happened was Nick Foles, 4 touchdowns, incredibly efficient, and this defense that was supposed to step it up while Carson Wentz was going to be missing some time, they were horrible. Horrible. Everything was bad. Tackling was bad. Defensive line was bad. Secondary was bad. Linebackers were bad. Safeties were terrible. Malcolm Jenkins had one of his worst games against the Giants. And then this week, it was, the new narrative. We saw with Nick Foles. Maybe we're fine with Nick Foles. What is this defense going to do? Defense absolutely saves our ass. They had a shaky first half for sure, but at the end of the day, defense played very, very well. Great for the defense without going in too much depth. I'm giving the defense an A. A-. Definitely not. I don't think I can give them with a straight face an A grade because the first half was really, really sloppy and Jalen Mills was terrible. I think it was just retroactive broken ankles when he got pulled out of the game a little bit later on from the Amari Cooper run. But any given Sunday, when that comes to what unit is going to show up, that is not good. That is not playoff football. That is not a first-round bye team. Teams that are complete. This Eagles team looked complete early in the season. And someone made like a semi-hot take that the secondaries looked terrible ever since Ronald Darby came in. And that was obviously before the Ronald Darby interception. But, we knew what we were getting with Ronald Darby. Ronald Darby was not this. There's a reason why the Buffalo Bills moved on from Ronald Darby. It's because he is a boomer bust player in the secondary. And the logic behind that is we have the safeties that kind of help mitigate the amount of bust plays that happen. And then you've seen, even last week, when he had his worst game maybe of his career, he still had an insane interception run against the Giants. Today, had a pretty meh game. Out of nowhere, gets an interception. That's the boomer bust play that Ronald Darby's had his reputation, even going all the way back to Florida State. But the issue is, I more so think, we have Jalen Mills on the other side. We have a true safety. Jalen Mills is a safety in the NFL, and he is starting on the outside. I just think, looking at the product of the Philadelphia Eagles defense, I don't think, riding this out is going to work. And one of my biggest critiques of Doug Peterson, of our running backs coach Stu Staley, is their player coaches. Player coaches are the type of coaches that are reluctant to give up on their players. They're reluctant to make a change because it's viewed like they're giving up on their players. They want to be the face of, the best friend to everyone. And there's no problem with that. We've seen in Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin is very much a player's coach, and he's one of the youngest Super Bowl winning coaches of all time. But when you look at the defense, Jim Schwartz does not strike me as a player coach. Jim Schwartz strikes me as a guy that's no nonsense, no bullshit. If it isn't working, he's going to change it. But we haven't seen that change. And if I look at that defense right now, I say something has to change. It's Jalen Mills. 99 finger wag in Madden is not compensating for the fact that any wide receiver with speed and agility is going to burn them. And if Jim Schwartz is not going to adapt his game plan to constantly have Malcolm Jenkins hovering behind Jalen Mills, which is, I honestly think that was the recipe of success earlier in the season. I don't have the exact snap counts, but it felt like there wasn't a lot of Jalen Mills getting put out on that Billy Davis, Bradley Fletcher island that, all DCs believe their corners can be Patrick Peterson on any given Sunday, to keep using that phrase. And it felt like earlier in the season when our secondary was shutting guys down, it felt like Malcolm Jenkins was popping back. You had Patrick Robinson playing the nickel, and you had Rasul Douglas on one side, and you had, Jalen Mills on the other. I don't know if Ronald Darby coming into the lineup now means that Jim Schwartz doesn't want to have safeties back there. But ultimately, if I had to make one change to this defense, which I think you need to, this is still unacceptable from the secondary. This is a team now that is going to have to be defensive first. The defense in the run game is going to have to lead this team. And what we saw against the Giants last week is not good enough for playoff football. You don't tweak for the sake of tweaking. I think you gotta go Jalen Mills, Rasul Douglas. I think Rasul Douglas didn't have a bad game, maybe a bad play or two, but Jalen Mills is nicked up. I don't know, the good thing about everything that's coming from this, because if you disagree with switching on the defense, I can understand that. Maybe I'm trying to pro it a little too much. I personally just have a gut feeling. I've seen too many Eagles teams stick with what's got them there, and even though the body that they're using getting into the playoffs is wobbly. They got a flat tire. They got a donut on there. They can't go over 50 miles an hour. They're still going there. They want to stick and ride or die with that versus where I would make a change. And if you disagree with that, you look at the offense, it comes down to Nick Foles. Is Nick Foles the option? I posed a question on Twitter. Do we bring in Colin Kaepernick for a tryout? I was very careful with my words because I do not want the media circus that may come in with a Colin Kaepernick. But I think with the play that we have seen with Nick Foles, the inconsistent play, what harm would it be seeing what Colin Kaepernick would look in this offense? I get he doesn't know the playbook. I get, personally, I don't think he's that good of a player, but I think he has the playoff experience. He has the experience that so many people are lauding Nick Foles for having. Why we're so fine with Carson Wentz going down, because Nick Foles has the experience. He's been there, done that. If you're looking at that for the reason why you want to stick with Nick Foles, I don't think there's a single reason why you can't bring in Kaepernick, who's had a big year or two, has the playoff experience, has playoff wins, unlike Nick Foles. Only for a tryout. That is it. If he is jaw-dropping, if he looks like an animal, he's been working out, he's on those Lane Johnson supplements, he was in Cabo with Ezekiel Elliott, getting on in a goddamn one-bedroom, one-bed, a bed and breakfast, sure, bring him in. But it's... Do you go Sudfeld then? I mean, there was a report out of camp that Nate Sudfeld was turning heads in practice. You know what I'm saying? We don't know. He's never played an NFL game. But whether you think we need to make a change on the defense or a change on the offense, because we were somehow, some way, able to find a way to win this game. We have the bye, which means next week game against Dallas. That is the game. I have Rasul Douglas starting. I don't know if you can activate Sidney Jones yet. If you can, if he's 100%, you throw Sidney Jones out there and you put Nate Sudfeld at quarterback. And you can see, is one of those two corners, Rasul Douglas or Sidney Jones, against a Dallas team that does not want to lose against Philly. Dallas is going to be playing all their starters. They're going to find solace somehow, some way in squeaking out a meaningless victory against the Eagles. Very similar to what the Eagles did against Dallas last year. You know, the Tony Romo game, we didn't mean anything. We still won it. It's still something we can hang their hand on. Dallas is going to come to play. So I would throw out all these potential guys that could benefit the Eagles to make a change. Let's see if Sudfeld can go out there, throw 3 touchdowns, look competent, have better chemistry with the wide receivers. It's unlikely, but let's see what he can do. Let's see what our secondary can do. Let's put Rasul Douglas against Dez Bryant. Let's have Sidney Jones maybe go up against a shiftier player like Cole Beasley. Let's see what he can do in case we want to make a change from Jalen Mills, because it clearly isn't working. At the end of the day, this is a tremendous situation for a team that is limping into the playoffs, because we have a meaningless game with a bunch of players looking to carve out an identity for this playoff push, because there is an opportunity, I think, for someone that might not be getting a lot of playing time right now to come in and start for this team in the playoffs. It's unlikely that it's Sudfeld. He's never played. It's unlikely that it's Sidney Jones. I'm looking more so at Rasul Douglas. I think if we put Rasul Douglas out on Dez Bryant and Rasul Douglas has a great game, I personally don't think how you can't have Jalen Mills take a seat. Jalen Mills, we know what he is. I personally think Jalen Mills is going to be a good safety. I think he could be this eventual successor of Malcolm Jenkins. But I just think with this product right now, something needs to change. And if it's not going to be the coaching, be it Doug Peterson, be it Jim Swartz, changing things up from that standpoint, it needs to come down to the depth chart. And we're going to find that out against Dallas. But tonight, you know, it's your boy C4. Had a friggin', you know, Merry Christmas, my first Christmas playing Santa, being Santa. It was awesome, fucking awesome. Had a couple, you know, a couple drinky poos. So that's why I decided to do the grades. You know what? We'll talk about the defense real quick. Might as well wrap that up. We still got, you know, I don't want this going over 20 minutes. But you know, to bring up the defense, Chris Long was, you know, the fact that he kind of gave up on that sack fumble, where if he was still in the play, he probably would have covered it. Maybe not necessarily for a touchdown, but would have put us in better position. It's kind of one under the bridge because we did win. I'm still going to give Zach Ertz the player of the game just because that's inexcusable from Chris Long. A veteran like that, you know, if Philly ended up losing that game, that is the turning point, I think, when you look back at missed opportunities, even more so than the terrible dropped interception from Jalen Mills. Like, we had that play, and Chris Long was celebrating rather than picking up the fumble. But he had, I mean, outstanding pickup, Chris Long was. Darby interception was good. Patrick Robinson interception was clinical. Only negative for the defense, I guess, is for a defensive line that's this good, it doesn't seem like we get, during this low stretch, during this stretch where Phillies look suspect, our sacks are gone down. And I know Brandon Graham limped off. He had an ankle injury. He was questionable, so it's not like something horrific. He gets, 2 weeks rest. It should be fine. But our sacks are a little bit concerning. I would say the end product is not really there. But that is kind of nitpicking, and I can't really nitpick at the defense because they bailed us out tonight. But yeah, man, those are my takes. That's my grades. Those are my points of emphasis from this game. All in all, we got the bye. We got the bye. Poison's Jack Daniel. We got the bye. That's all we needed. This week of videos, like I said, it's going to be heavily Eagles/draft. There's going to be my second mock draft. I'm going to have a couple draft prospect videos. I have another Eagles mock draft. Probably a Snowhawk stream at some point. And a rebuild on Friday. But obviously, things are pretty busy right now. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy the game. We'll be back to talk about and hype up this game against the Dallas Cowboys later in the week. Fly, Eagles, fly, baby. We got that bye, baby. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.